Ho! Welcome one and all to the 12 Days of Anime. I am your host, Mr. Seljoy Bandit, and have I got a special thing coming up for you guys in the next couple of days. So I'm going to be partaking in the 12 Days of Anime, and if people don't know what that is, well, every day up until Christmas, I'm going to be doing a video for you guys, talking about a certain series with each and every day and all that, including of my normal videos, and doing a certain discussion or topic out of them. And I'd like to keep most of them topical to this year. Most of them are saying like, with something with the series, but a lot of them will come back to like some other series that I've always wanted to talk about, or even I've watched and read throughout this year. And with each day, I'm going to be making it out of one series or another. And why don't we stop with the first day of the 12 Days of Anime with, what's that I see behind me? Oh, whatever could it be? It's Fairy Tail. Now, people know and all that the channel is mainly a fairy tale channel for the most part. We talk a lot about fairy tale, how the world fairies and all that. And I like this series probably more than I should have, as it does like to shit its bed a couple of times throughout the year. But then again, with every time it shits the bed, we also as well get some really amazing moments, especially with the recent chapter as well of the series. And even with all its major faults and all that, I always will have a special place for this series in my heart. And we've had some insane things coming over the year throughout the entirety of Fairy Tail. We've had through a ton of the Spriggan 12 fights, alongside with the current stuff that is learning about the origin of Dragon Slayers in general, the first Dragon Slayers, a little bit about Urza's past. But one of the biggest things that happened this year, especially for Fairy Tail, was finding out Natsu exactly seeing his E.N.D form. And today's video is especially going to be talking about is how strong is Natsu truly in his E.N.D form. As you guys have already predicted, I am going to be going into some stuff with spoilers involving the series in general that's kind of up to. So if you guys are only just anime only watchers, I would heavily advise you guys not to actually go and watch this video for the most part. But in case, just sit back, enjoy, and let's begin how strong Natsu is in his E.N.D form. Ethereus Natsu Dragon Eel. Now, this is something that has been going for the tips of the tongues for a lot of people, because people have been wondering for a while, even with Natsu's Dragon King mode, one of his most powerful forms that he's attained during this entire arc, during the Alvarez Empire arc, people have been knowing if whether or not like this E.N.D form, from what we've seen, as we've only seen a little bit of it, is exactly his strongest form that he's going to attain throughout the series of Fairy Tail. The only real background and actual little power gauge that we have to have is when he was going against Grey in his Ice Devil Slayer mode, and both of them were kind of going crazy throughout the entire time. Natsu wasn't exactly thinking straight, he was acting more like a monster. Grey was just acting because like, he was like, oh, Julia was dead, I thought she was dead all this time. Same thing with Natsu, he went absolutely crazy because he thought Lucy died, and of course we know and all that, not a lot of deaths already happened in Fairy Tail, so yeah, those things kind of didn't happen. But the gauging of the power level is the most important thing of here, because we need to ask ourselves really, is this enough to beat up Zereth? And one of the biggest things that was happening throughout the entirety of that fight during Natsu alongside Rick Grey is that Natsu was evolving more and more throughout that fight. If people noticed around about the end of that fight, he started growing like these demonic dragon claws in his arm, his face was turning black. He also had this like development of this black kind of tint to his flames. Like, it was kind of honestly reminding me a lot by combining the fusion of like the kind of God Slayer that they had when they were going against Zarnkrow fight, so adding into that level. And what I was honestly thinking is that the way that we saw with what he was doing right now is that he was pretty much easily going against someone like Grey, and I think he could have easily overpowered Grey after a while. Like, it was honestly how it was leading up to, and it was generally thinking like we were probably even halfway through his transformation, or even like not even close to that, where I generally think that he is going to get stronger and stronger throughout the more of it. The only biggest question is like how much of his brain power could actually withstand throughout this entire film, because he was already acting for the most part just completely mindless and senseless. Don't get me wrong, Natsu isn't the smartest like apple that fell from a tree, but let's be honest right here, he is known for actually using a lot of kind of strategies in his fight, and actually using a lot of kind of like ambidextrous moves. Like, he's always flipping around, jumping, he's always kind of got an idea where to like fly across and all that and actually hit the opponent. But definitely with this one especially is like, you know, honestly will raw power actually be able to actually gauge against someone like Zereth from what we've seen them. Even the fact that like Dragon King apparently, like the Dragon King mode form we saw was apparently enough to kill Zeref, can Natsu E.N.D and his kind of like wild savage form, can this actually be enough, like where it can be on a strength level as that? And from what it was going from what we've seen there, that the Dragon King mode and what we've seen so far at E.N.D, it wasn't as strong as what we saw at the Dragon King mode. This was magic that he was building up the years, and do you really think like a transformation like this that just came out pretty much like out of nowhere, like inside his inner body, is actually going to be happening? Plus, we also have to think about now with the situation that this can be happening alongside with the last stage of the Dragon Slayer, so he can becoming more like a dragon, and he can actually be getting the more dragon powers that we've been seeing of some of the characters we've seen, especially like the humongous power gap between what it is between most Fairy Tail mages and even most Fairy Tail characters in general, between characters like Zeref and also as well Acnologia. Acnologia being one of the most powerfulest things in the entire series. So we honestly have to add into the fact, who can Natsu really go against in this entire fight? Can he go against someone of insane power like Irene, August? Can he go against Acnologia, Zeref? Can he go against any of these big players in like the entire the Alvarez Empire, even just in the Fairy Tail universe? Can he actually in this form go against them? And I think once he's attained this full version of this form, where like a lot of people depict him with his demon wings, dragons, like just flying around, I think it's going to be this really weird hybrid form of combining like the last stage of the Dragon Slayer, like actually becoming a dragon, alongside with also as well like with his demonic look. I think at that point he's going to attain strength that is going to be on level, or like kind of on the level of that Dragon King mode that he had, maybe even more. And the fact that Natsu can combine this with some intelligence of his, like if he can actually combine this with like some of the styles that he has, if he combines this with like Lightning Dragon mode or any of the other modes that he's had, or hell, if he can even tap into the Dragon King mode again, like Natsu is going to be goddamn unstoppable. But during that entire fight, it seemingly that he was going evenly for the most part, with barely attaining that power and barely even using it and all that for the grey part. But if he actually uses it, and maybe if he actually starts learning to control it, I think it can be as strong on that level. And even the fact is, like, can it actually be more powerful than characters like Gildas, like in his prime? Can it even be stronger than kind of like characters that we've seen with August, where August is easily able to take on Jalal and members like of the Araxion Sais, also as well with Irene just showing her sheer amount of power that she can even pull, like hold back Acnologia from what it looks like. You know, that's the biggest question in the series. And the fact, can it actually, with this power, can it kill someone like Zeref, as like this was meant to kill Zeref in the first place? This is why he pretty much created Natsu along the side of actually he wanted his baby brother back. Honestly, only depends really on like what of the scientific genius that was Zeref is. Was he that crazy enough, and was he enough powerful, like not only to bring his brother back, but also as well can he actually make him into that mindless killing machine that he wanted him to kill him with? All these answers are still yet to come in the Fairy Tail series in general, but the biggest question though is, what do you guys think? With everything that's happened in this year of Fairy Tail and all that, like, how do you think it is going to end for Natsu and all that? And honestly, what do you think that the series could potentially be, like, wrapping itself up? Or, like, even as well, this is one of the longest Fairy Tail arcs that we've had in the entire series, and the fact that it's still continuously ongoing, that it is going to be the longest one. How do you think it's honestly going to end? And do you think there's going to be more material after this arc? Because we are talking about big players in like the Fairy Tail series. We're talking about people like, you know, that are related to Urza. We're dealing with like characters like Irene, like Acnologia could like possibly be, well, although he's kind of been more kind of sidelined for the most part. Do you honestly think that Acnologia at this point is going to be like the final villain in the series, or do you think it's actually going to be like the actual god that they've been talking about, like was like the one that actually cursed Zeref in the first place? Do you think it's going to be something higher up? Like in that case, honestly, I kind of would like it if anything at this point it was Zeref, or if it was Acnologia at this point, maybe more Acnologia, something that's kind of been built up for a good chunk in the series. I kind of wouldn't like it if it was, say, like kind of like what Naruto did, where it was like it was a last minute kind of villain just kind of coming out of nowhere. You heard like a little bit about. If anything, I wouldn't appreciate that. Like I'd more like appreciate something like we've kind of known for a very long time and had this big fear of Acnologia. And I feel like it would make more sense if it was something like Acnologia. But then again, we can never tell all that with Fairy Tail, and definitely it has been a very exciting year, both negatively and positively for Fairy Tail. I think everyone can agree with that. Like, regardless of how many times you probably didn't like a chapter or it did something stupid this year for Fairy Tail, I think there was always a time, or at least you can mention one moment where it's like, actually Fairy Tail did something good this year. Like, you know, or it's like, oh, I didn't expect that from Fairy Tail, or wow, I can't believe it did that. You know, I think that's kind of the blessing and curse of Fairy Tail. Even with some of this way, which I will admit I am very biased sometimes with the series and all that, and that's, I think any fandoms like that, with any series that they've like grown up with or kind of cared about, that's the same with any franchise, with One Piece, Naruto, bleach, everything like that. We care about our series every little ways, and we do kind of forget. We kind of let like the little bad things slide sometimes. But then as well, it's also the festive year where you think about more the positives than the negatives and all that. And it's a festive year, you got to think positive as always and all that. And I hope everyone and all that, you enjoy the rest of your Christmas time with your family and your loved ones. But that is all from me, so stay tuned for the next 12 days of animes. But that's all from me as always. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you guys though next time.